Tom Slater is still with me. Frack, baby, frack. We've got another reform policy has been announced in the last 24 hours. Not just this plan to detain and mass deport illegal migrants, but also Deputy Leader Richard Tice, something he's been talking about for years, said it would be grossly financially negligent to leave hundreds of billions of pounds worth of energy buried underground. And they've already told oil and gas firms prepare to make fresh applications for licences and get ready to drill, baby, drill. That's even 4 years before the next general election comes. So would you support that?
Absolutely. I think the way in which that we've basically tied our hands behind our backs when it comes to our shale gas and oil reserves has been insane. It's on the basis of, absurd kind of limits on drilling and the potential tremors that it produces. A lot of propaganda from the Green lobby that this is really dangerous and disruptive.
Not outright lies.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's been so categorically debunked, a lot of this stuff, and yet still it continues on. Obviously, there's been a lot of lawfare regionally to try and stop exploration from happening. But, if you look at the US, the way in which they've been able to exploit those resources to tremendous gain for those places has been really clear. It's also, incidentally, a big part of how, during the Obama years in particular, they brought down their greenhouse gas emissions, funnily enough, because of the fact that obviously this is, in terms of some of the alternatives, is less
Fracking
carbon
is quite
intensive.
Clean, yeah.
So it's
even while they talked the game. Yeah. Oh,
exactly.
Yeah.
This is terrible.
Yes, 99.9% of scientists say global warming is an absolute human-made disaster. Oh, but meanwhile, we're going to be
baby drills.
Indeed.
So I think it's a good thing, and I think it will probably take a bit of work to bring the public on side, because I think this issue hasn't really been a live one, and you need to win people over.
Yes, I think fracking is a word apparently we should use, because people have associated that with this propaganda. Well, let's talk about this with Rupert Darwall. He's the author of Green Tyranny and joins us now. A very good afternoon to you, Rupert.
Glad to be joining you, Julia.
Thank you for joining us. Well, indeed. I mean, I would say green tyranny is exactly what this is. We've got a load of, shale gas underneath our ground, particularly in certain parts of the country. It's been identified, and we're just leaving it there. Indeed, companies being told to cement up wells where they found it, and we're leaving a load of North Sea oil and gas under the waves as well because of the green tyranny.
Yeah, and it's a bipartisan or three-party green tyranny, because it was Ed Davey who imposed these ridiculous limits on the tremors that frackers could make, far below that for construction sites or any other.
And we're talking about the equivalent of a double-decker bus going by.
I mean, ridiculously tight. He's actually admitted it. He designed the limits to stop fracking. We then had Boris Johnson, who imposed a fracking moratorium.
Carrie Johnson did it, really, but her representative on Earth carried it out.
Liz Truss tried to lift it. Her government didn't last long, and as soon as she went, Rishi Sunak reimposed it. Yeah. And then, of course, the other thing that Tom mentions, oil and gas, the North Sea oil and gas, and we had Jeremy Hunt, when he was Chancellor, impose the windfall tax, which then his Labour successor made even worse. So this is very much a three-party complete mess that they've created of Britain's energy resources.
And in that bizarre situation where a lot of people, the Ed Miliband's now and Keir Starmer and others, and all the Labour MPs, in fact, a load of Tories as well, they'll all claim, but we're going to move to net zero. Okay, at no point, at any point before or after 2050 are we going to have net zero use of oil and gas. We need oil and gas, and it makes a lot more sense for us to be producing our own, even if you were opposed to you're worried about the concerns of climate change and believe it's man-made and a massive issue. It still makes more sense for us to have it use gas and oil from under our ground or under the waves in our seas than it does to ship it from the other side of the world, because that is not only what we are doing, it's what we're going to continue to do long after, even if net zero was achieved.
Well, that's absolutely right. The other aspect of this is that oil and gas create revenues for the government, whereas wind and solar have to be subsidised. So there's the whole angle of the impact on public finances, on taxation and so forth. And yes, I think frackers do, one of the smart things to do is to work out how you compensate local people from the disruption, which is not from earth tremors, it's actually from essentially lorries moving sand and so forth to help the fracking process. But local people, local households need to be compensated
Exactly.
for that, and they can get and gain some of the benefit from the activity that's
And
happening
I feel
in their
the same way,
localities.
exactly. Same for airports, same for new housing developments and the like. And if you put a load of pylons up or whatever it is, compensating local people, the people who have to put up with the disruption. If you have a nuclear power station or a gas power station put near you, I'm really happy for those people to get, cheaper in perpetuity, cheaper energy or whatever to compensate them for the loss of amenity. That seems really, really basic and cheaper at half the price. But do you think that realistically the reform could ever actually do this? Because you would, again, you'd have the local councils and the planning. You'd have every green organisation funded to the tune of billions by other international organisations and the billionaires who've decided this is their big virtue signal. That actually you'd never be able to actually get this off the ground given the current legal framework.
Get this
out of the ground even.
there are two obstacles. One is the politics, and the first thing is to remind people that oil and gas jobs are very high-paying jobs, which is why some of the best-paid people in the country happen to live in Aberdeen. The other one, as you point out, is the legal frameworks. You have to amend the Town and Country Planning Act so that local authorities are precluded from considering greenhouse gas emissions in their environmental impact. You need to change the national planning policy planning framework to do the same thing. So there's some hard work, there's some basic.
But we need to do that anyway because a lot of that legislation actually prevents you doing anything. You can't build anything given those rules.
You can't end up with a situation where a judge says that a coal mine, a new coal mine or an oil field can't be developed because it raises greenhouse gas emissions, which has an effect on climate change. You just can't have that. I mean, no other same country does that. Norway, which is has a huge proportion of EVs, is still it's a massive oil and gas producer, and they're not going to leave their national wealth underground.
No, but haven't they just discovered an amazing new seam of oil and gas in the North Sea at a point where we basically said we're not going to bother because we're not going to be able to get it out because of the restrictions because of net zero. I mean, this is madness.
Norway has a left of centre government, and there's a basic policy that British government should do is if Norway is doing it, we should do it because Norway's done extremely well out of North Sea oil and gas.
And they didn't fritter it all away as well in the 80s. So it went into their sovereign wealth fund. 4% of the world's wealth or something is investments is by Norway, and they only allowed to spend a certain amount, and it's only on capital spending. I mean, we should think about this sort of long-term planning in this country. That might make us a little bit better. But you think they could really do this? Because we know the one thing that Reform have already announced in recent months is telling a lot of these sort of, green subsidised organisations and firms, listen, you can bid for this particular thing now, but if we're in power in 4 years' time, you ain't getting a penny. So good luck with that. And that's going to dissuade a lot of companies from going along with a lot of the green madness if they're not sure that particular gravy train has got a long way to go.
I think Richard Tice has been absolutely brilliant on this in warning potential investors. Look at the underlying economics of what you're putting your money into, and if it relies on government subsidy, you should run a mile. And in contrast, it has to be said, the Conservatives are suffering from acute policy paralysis. They don't seem to be able to say anything on stuff like this.
No, indeed. Just find it, though, would it bring prices down? Because one of the things we were always told, even if we did do the fracking, I remember discussing this on this very show in this studio some years ago, it wouldn't actually bring our prices down. But it certainly has in America. Why would our prices not go down? Because if we were fracking for our own gas?
Well, there's a reason why because the natural gas market is regional in that you have gas pipelines, which creates a regional market.
Right.
When you ship it, you have to turn it into LNG, and then you have to regasify it at the other end. And so there is a point. But what can be said without any doubt is that if we did fracking, it would strengthen the national finances. It would create more higher paid jobs, and it would improve the national finances. It'd probably strengthen the pound and make everyone better off simply through that.
There you are, you see?
There are economic benefits even if prices don't actually fall.
We're all going to be winners. Rupert Darwall, author of Green Tyranny, thank you for that.